So here's a question for you. How much control should tech platforms or even government really have over the information line? It feels like this question is getting more urgent all the time. And that's exactly what we're digging into today. Our focus for this deep dive is this rapidly escalating global push for online censorship, surveillance, control. And it's often wrapped up in this package of, child protection. We've looked at recent discussions from various YouTube channels that offer a pretty critical take on these developments and what they mean for, our freedom. So our mission here is to unpack those arguments, look at some specific examples, and really think about what it all means. We want you to understand.
Yeah, and what's striking is how consistent the narrative is that these sources are describing. The stated reason for these big new measures. It's also always child safety and protecting kids from harmful content, especially pornography. The discussions we looked at call this the classic think of the children argument.
Yeah.
Where just porn is bad.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff to get public support, right? They actually label it a Trojan horse.
A Trojan horse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how do these sources say that strategy actually plays out? Like beyond the official statements, what are the specific things they point to that maybe give away a different intention?
Well, the counter-argument you hear in these sources is pretty direct. These moves aren't really about protecting children. Instead, they argue it's a kind of strategic cover, a pretext for much wider control and mass surveillance. So, for instance, they point to big payment processors like Visa and MasterCard. They're described as doing their absolute best to censor you under this child protection banner. And it affects what you buy online, what content you can even see. There's even a comparison made to an anime, Shimonetta, where, basic censorship just snowballed into total control and information blackout.
That's a really important point. It suggests using a concern everyone agrees on child safety to push through measures that go way further. And these sources argue we're seeing that happen, particularly with things like the UK's Online Safety Act. They use some really strong language for it, calling it a dystopian cesspit, even actual fascism.
They really do. And the act itself is presented as a prime example of this trend. It forces users to prove their age. You're talking government ID or biometric data like facial scans.
Facial scans, wow.
Yeah, and not just for accessing porn. It's to get onto all sorts of online services.
Like what? What kind of services?
Well, the list includes platforms like Reddit, Twitter, even specific Discord features, Wikipedia, Spotify too.
Spotify. Seriously?
Seriously. And if you can't or won't prove your age, the consequences are pretty stark. Accounts get deactivated, maybe even permanently deleted.
Okay, so this wide net for age verification, that's where the concern really ramps up, isn't it?
Exactly. The sources say this kind of thing leads towards, thought crime. They give some pretty alarming examples from the UK, like arrests for burning a Quran, or even for peaceful protests, people holding choose life signs near abortion clinics.
So it spills over from content moderation into actually policing expression itself.
That's the fear. And these discussions also bring up a UK MP, Peter Kyle. He's on record supporting the Online Safety Act, but the sources allege he voted against looking into grooming gangs. So they highlight this apparent contradiction, between the tough talk on safety and his actions, fueling that skepticism about the real motive.
Right. So, beyond direct government laws like that act, these sources are saying this push for control is creeping into other digital spaces too, like gaming and platforms we use every single day, but through different means. What do they say about how payment processors are shaping things in the gaming world?
Yeah, this is interesting. These analyses focus on an organization called Collective Shout. Mm-hmm. It's an advocacy group focused on harmful content, but it's described as having leverage on payment processors. Basically using that leverage to pressure platforms, think Scheme, itch.io, to take down games.
Okay, so what kind of games are we talking about?
Well, initially the target was rape and incest games, which most people would probably agree shouldn't be hosted.
Understandable.
But then, according to these sources, it quickly broadened. On itch.io, it became about removing all adult content.
Ah, so the scope expanded.
Right. And the worry highlighted in these discussions is that this sets a really dangerous precedent. Could it lead to censoring LGBTQ plus theme or violent games, or even just games with complex adult narratives? They mention titles like Detroit, Become Human, GTA V, Tomb Raider, even God of War as potentially vulnerable down the line.
So the argument is basically that Visa or MasterCard shouldn't get to decide what games people can buy unless it's actually illegal content.
Pretty much. Their role shouldn't extend to moral gatekeeping beyond the law.
It really shows the power these financial middlemen have in the digital world, doesn't it? If they can control the money flow, they can effectively control the content. It's a choke point. And moving to YouTube, these discussions also cover its recent plan, right? To use AI in the U.S. to guess if users are underage, even if you say you're an adult in your profile.
That's right. Yeah. And this AI supposedly looks at behavioral factors.
Right.
Things like your search history, what kinds of videos you watch, how old your account is, that sort of thing.
And what are the concerns there? I mean, AI isn't perfect.
No, exactly. The sources raise serious points about AI inaccuracy. They use this example. Imagine adult Pokemon fan, maybe competitive players or collectors or content creators. The AI might see Pokemon and just flag the account as belonging to a child, right? Based on pattern recognition that lacks nuance.
Right. I can totally see that happening. You're watching high-level strategy videos and suddenly YouTube thinks you're 12 and locks you out.
Precisely. And if the AI gets it wrong, to appeal it, you need to hand over your credit card info, a government ID.
Or a selfie, more biometric data again.
Yep. And there's this other service mentioned, Verify My, which some platforms might use. The sources describe it as potentially sharing your email address with all sorts of third parties. We're talking financial institutions, credit bureaus, maybe even mortgage lenders, just to confirm your age.
Wow. Okay, that sounds like a massive privacy issue waiting to happen.
Definitely raises red flags for the people discussing it.
And you mentioned global trends. Australia is doing something similar.
Yeah, briefly mentioned Australia apparently plans to ban YouTube entirely for under 16s later this year, though YouTube is reportedly trying to fight that.
Okay, so pulling all these threads together, what's the bigger picture according to these sources? What's the end game?
Well, it brings us back to that core argument they make.
Yeah.
These measures, whatever the stated reason, are fundamentally about something else. They're about gathering more data for mass surveillance, for control, and this is their term, brainwashing the next generation. How? By limiting their access to different viewpoints, to alternative information.
So they see it as a direct assault on freedom. Losing anonymity, clamping down on free speech, turning the internet effectively into a more authoritarian regime.
That's the language used, yes.
And what about parents? Where do they fit into this?
The sources strongly argue that protecting children online is primarily a parent's job, not the government's, not the platforms. They say, look, tools like YouTube Kids already exist. Parents should be the ones ensuring their kids use age-appropriate platforms.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then there's a more controversial theory floated in some of these discussions. They suggest that societal shifts like needing 2 incomes per household combined with government actions actually discourage hands-on parenting. And this, they argue, kind of pushes parents to rely more on the internet to, well, help raise their kids.
That's a provocative take on modern life and responsibility. What about the U.S. specifically? Are similar things happening there?
Well, the sources mentioned former President Trump warning pretty strongly against these kinds of mass censorship efforts. But yes, similar legislation is being pushed. They mentioned the Kids Online Safety Act, or COSA, being reintroduced.
So the same debates are happening stateside.
The sources acknowledge the U.S. First Amendment is a potential bulwark against some of it. But there's still a concern that, quote, the groundwork is being laid for similar restrictions.
And they offer a kind of challenge, right, about the stated goals.
Yeah, it's quite pointed. They basically say, if the real concern is kids accessing porn, then why not just push governments to ban porn outright? It challenges the narrative, pits the stated intention against what's actually happening.
So we've covered a lot of ground. The core tension seems really clear, the stated aim of protecting children versus what these sources see as the real push for increased control and surveillance.
It's definitely complex and it's moving fast, different countries, different companies, but often similar kinds of measures popping up.
The whole digital landscape is shifting, isn't it? How we access information, how much we share.
Absolutely. The rules of the game are changing.
So maybe here's something for you to think about as we wrap this up. If your data, your access to information, if that's becoming the new currency of control, how much are you willing to trade away for what might just be the illusion of safety? And what does real freedom even look like in a world that's watching ever more closely online?